am using a different streaming process, and so I'm hoping that I'm on. I just want to connect with folks. I have been working with schools and teachers, and I just kind of wanted to connect and see how folks are doing. I know there are some teachers who are still in the using a virtual classroom. And then there are others who have moved into being in with kids. So I just wanted to check in to see where folks are. And there has been a lot of, I think, conversations just around feeling overwhelmed, the difficulty of running a virtual classroom. And I'm not going to lie, I've never done that before. I've done, obviously adults are very different than children in terms of a virtual platform, especially when we're talking about littles. And so I've not ever done that before. So, all the support that I'm trying to offer is coming from a very theoretical place, like try this and try that. So I want to make sure that we're offering, or that I'm offering any kind of support that I can. I know Rachel had made a request or had said how difficult it is. And I can't even imagine how difficult it is to really connect with children, to be able to create an experience for children where they feel connected and wanting to feel engaged. I have a 12-year-old daughter. Most of you know that already. If you have listened to any of my talks, I talk about her a lot. And she struggles with not being able to have conversations in class. The teacher is providing the information the best that they can. It's not at all to say that teachers aren't working their butts off, because I know everyone is. Everyone is doing like the best that we can do at this point, right? And so but the frustration is that, she sees her friends because she's in the 7th grade now. So she's relationships with folks who are on there. But she can't really engage because there aren't as many opportunities for that. One of the things that I really think is important are those small group experiences whenever possible. I think the younger the children, the more important it is for us to really consider having those small group opportunities where it isn't a whole group instruction all of the time or a whole group connection all the time, just like in the classroom. That we're in the classroom, we should have opportunities for those smaller groups and more intimate conversations, the opportunities to be really reflective and to have meaningful conversations. So I just wanted to touch base. So if anybody wants to comment or say how things are going, please do that. And I want to just do a quick reminder that one of the things that sometimes we do when we're stressed and overwhelmed. So let me tell you how the brain works a little bit. We learn strategies, and this is something that I've been working on for many, many years, learn strategies to deal with stress, or learn strategies to deal with uncertainty and even frustrations, or all of those emotions that we aren't very excited about having, right? It's like it shows up for us and we've got to figure out, why is it showing up for me? In our transformative talks that I do with Christy and Ijuma, those of you who are on my website or on my Facebook page, you've seen that we're doing these transformative talks. And Christy always asks me to talk about a way to sort of ground ourselves. And one of the things that I think is super important is for us to just really recognize when you are starting to feel very overwhelmed, just to notice it without judgment. And that's the hard part, is we self-judge. We beat ourselves up. It's what I call, we should all over ourselves. I should know better. I should do differently. I should do da. And we can do that forever and a day. I mean, we can should ourselves all over, all of the time. And unfortunately, it's self-judgment. It's self-judgment. And that self-judgment carries a heavy weight on us. And it adds to the stress, and it adds to the feelings of overwhelm. And so just noticing it, learning to be the observer of your emotional state of being, just noticing it, and the last couple of days I've kind of been a little off kilter, and it's like I can feel that coming on, and I start to notice, okay, what's going on with in my stomach. For me, I carry it sort of in my chest area and sometimes in my stomach. And then sometimes, depending on the situation, I carry it in my jaw. So it's noticing, just saying, there it is. I can feel you frustration. I can feel you uncertainty. I can feel you. And just sitting, leaning into that experience without judging it. What it does is it diffuses the power that we have, the perceived power it has over us. But we also have to practice ways to sort of gracefully move through it, recognizing, just like with kids, I say to kiddos all the time, feelings change. And they do. Our emotional state of being, if you really pay attention, if you really get into the process of noticing, you'll notice that when you wake up in the morning, you might feel a certain way. And then within 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, you might feel a different way. After a cup of coffee, you might feel a different way. And so we go through these ebbs and flows of our emotional state of being all the time. The thing is we pay attention to it when it's sort of our extremes, instead of noticing even just the little nuances of what we are experiencing. That's the key, is to notice those little nuances and understand that's temporary, that it's coming and it's going, and its job is really to help inform us where we are emotionally, and to, if we can perceive it, remember, your perception is your reality. So if you can perceive it as something that is showing up for you for a particular reason, and then to start to reflect on, okay, what is this reason, right? What is my frustration telling me right now? And for me, it's oftentimes the opportunity to practice being able to find my calm again, the calm in the middle of the storm. That's the key. It's like so much of how we are feeling is circumstantial. So much of what we're experiencing is happening around us. But the truth of it is, a big chunk of that we can't control. We cannot control what's happening around us. And so, there are things that we can and we can't. And if you've ever seen my circle, the one that comes from Stephen Covey, the circle of influence, the circle of control, and then what we have concern over, we have neither control or influence. And so we take a look at, what is it that I can control, right? And then we've got to start to practice the process of releasing that which we cannot control. We spend a lot of time worrying about things. We spend a lot of time concerned over things that either have already happened or that we have concerns of happening. But in that present moment, you have no control over that. And so one of the things that for me, when stuff like this shows up, it's an opportunity for me to practice the process of getting fully present. And another breathing strategy, I've talked a lot about breathing strategies and deep belly breaths, and the one where you inhale one nostril and then you exhale the other. I actually use that quite a bit when I have to do a quick sort of recentering myself. I use that inhale one and then out the other, so that I can get to that place of like being able to move from my freak out place back here, my brainstem, to move from that place into the place where I'm able to make rational decisions about things, to be able to look at things objectively. And that's my key, is to look at things objectively. And so I really practice the process of deep breathing and noticing. So noticing and deep breathing. The other thing that's really, and I'm going to show you that breathing strategy in a minute, but another thing that's super important for me is not taking things personal. And that is just something I consistently work on. I mean, we all have to consistently work on these things. It doesn't like one day you get it and then you never have to deal with it again. It's that not taking things personal. For those of you who are really good at teaching, for those of you who feel really successful at your work, or really successful, let's say, at connecting with children, or whatever you have sort of defined yourself as, what happens sometimes is that when we start to feel less successful, we start to sort of beat up on ourselves, and we start to then, judge ourselves, the shouldas start to come up, right? And we take things personal. Even if there's a comment that's made by another colleague or by a parent or whatever, we go, right to our heart, right? And so we want to practice the process of not taking things personally. And this is where the notice comes into play. This is where we notice what you're experiencing. Where am I feeling? And why is that affecting me in the way that it is? And it's learning to separate yourself from what's coming at you. Now we can do that objectively. We can look at suggestions. We can look at feedback. We can look at, I hate the term criticism, constructive criticism. It's like, I'm going to constructively tell you, what all about yourself. I'm going to do it in a constructive way. But, we can take that feedback and we can choose how to hear it. We can choose to hear it as, these are the things that I can do without being a direct impact or direct attack on who I am as an individual. Okay. So that practice of not taking it personal, I can see the information, I can see the ideas, I can see the feedback in terms of what I can do next or how I can improve without being about who I am as a person. Unfortunately, a lot of us have been in the practice of taking things very personal and taking things where someone says I did this, wasn't effective, right? So all of a sudden I'm a bad teacher, or I am an ineffective teacher, or I am not good enough. If you've got any issues around worthiness, that comes up, especially in our professional realm, because we're trying to step in, whether we like it or not. When we show up at work, we're performing, right? We're performing a job. And so when somebody gives feedback, if you have those issues around worthiness and feeling good enough, that may be triggered. And so it's all of this is going on while we're trying to be effective teachers, right? And so it's important for us to remember that this doesn't equal who you are as a professional. It doesn't equal who you are as a teacher. We're all just in this trying to figure it out. And, I worry that some of you who might be feeling overwhelmed or might be feeling like, sometimes when we get to levels of burnout, it may not be that you're experiencing burnout. It may be that you are shifting out of what has been comfortable, where you have found success. And now it's feeling, you're having a lot of uncertainty and doubt because you're not getting the feedback that you're used to getting. There's a lot of there's a lot of satisfaction. There's a reciprocity in every relationship. I want to say that, but there's a lot of satisfaction. This is that reciprocity when you see a child who's struggling. Let's say even just transitioning to school, right? When you see a child who's having a difficult time transitioning to school, you go, oh, okay, child needs this. He needs connection, needs to know that they're supported, needs to know that it's safe, needs to know that they're grown-ups who care, right? We do all of that. So we start to work on it. And sometimes it takes 3 weeks and sometimes it takes 3 days. It just depends on every single child, but we can see the progress, right? We can see where, okay, she looked at me today, whereas 2 days ago, there was no eye contact. There was no, child sort of sat in the back and just curled up in a ball. Today, they didn't curl up in a ball. They came over and sat at the proximity around circle time. We're making progress. But in that whole process, there's satisfaction in that. We're moving, right? You can see it, you can feel it, and it feels good as a teacher to go, okay, we're making progress, even if it's baby steps, because if you're not celebrating baby steps, then you're really going to burn out. As a teacher, you got to celebrate those baby steps. But now we're on a virtual platform. And so those baby steps aren't as obvious. You're gonna not see you're not gonna see the effect that you have in the same way that you do in a classroom, because the relationship is through a screen. And so sometimes when that happens, it is feeling like, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Is this effective? Is this enough? How do I reach that child? Or I can see that there's a struggle here, but how do I do it on a screen? I don't have those answers. But what I do have an answer to is that you have to, in order to survive through this, is you have to become aware. Okay. You have to practice the sense of awareness. What is within your power? What is within your control? And because it's not working in the way that it would have worked in the classroom, doesn't mean you're not an effective teacher. It doesn't mean that you're not an incredible educator. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to do this effectively. Okay. It just means that right now, this is where we're at. And we just have to look through a different lens when we're trying to reach children. And you're not going to reach every single child because the platform is very difficult to do that. We do the best we can given what we have, given what we're experiencing. Okay, so let me read some comments. Hi, Kristen. Hi, Rachel. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you guys are on. One day at a time. Yes, absolutely. Essential oils. Okay, so here's a cool thing. Feeling better after heart to heart with my online team and assistant head of school. Awesome. I use essential oils too. But you know what I started to do with somebody, and you guys probably already know this. I just started doing this, but we wear our masks out. So I dropped some lavender, because lavender is one of those that help you feel good if you like essential oils. And for peppermint is also really good. You don't want too much peppermint. It'll burn you and it'll kill you. It's too much. But just one little drop of peppermint, or I drop some lavender and I put my mask on when I go out to the grocery store or whatever. And that really helps. For me, it really, really helps. If you're going into your school to, broadcast live from your classrooms, you even wearing your mask at work that way can also offer some some calmness, and that it really does help me. Not everybody has the same experience. It does work for me. Okay. You just joined Beachbody. Awesome. One of the things I feel really bad. I'm trying to get moving more too, because it's real easy to sit in a chair and do this all day long. My kid, I worry that she's not moving enough. And, she's at an age right now where teachers often don't think about the physical. I mean, her school doesn't even have PE. So it's a performing arts school. So, it's like there isn't thought put into the physical movement, and that kids need to be moving. So those of us who do littles, we need to make sure that we're getting kids up and moving and dancing and all of those things to just get their body, even if some yoga stretches or yoga poses. A child's play, you can do warrior, there's so many that you can do that just really get the energy moving in our bodies that I think might be helpful to some children. And that means you have to do them too. That means it gives you an opportunity to get moving. That's right, the deep breathing. So let me tell you another one. So there's the flower one, right, that most people know, especially if you're a follower of Dr. Becky Bailey. She does a lot of blowing out the candles and smelling the cake. But another one is just lifting your hands up. So if you lift your arms up like this and take a couple deep breaths, it's virtually impossible for you to breathe simply here in your chest. It pulls it down to the belly. So it's something that I would even have children do if I was doing a classroom the way you all are, is lifting your arms up and then inhaling, taking a couple deep breaths like that. It forces you to fill your belly basically full of air. And that's where we want those deep breathing experiences, so we can oxygenate the brain, and that we can be better at getting through life, right? Even if you just start every day like that and end every day like that, I think it's a good opportunity to get into that practice. Rachel, yeah. Okay, so taking things personal, I'm learning how to do better each day. I will tell you, yeah, and parents do. I think parents are sort of in that place too. And then some of you are teachers and parents like me. And I'm not a classroom teacher, but it's a very different experience. I'm not trying to say that I know exactly what you guys are going through, but the experience around just the uncertainty, and parents who, and I know for me, I don't know how to do 7th grade math. I don't. And so figuring out how do I provide the best level of support to her? And I don't know if any of you have children. I have, when she first was in the 4th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, she started to get to that place where she's like, you don't know how to do it. My teacher doesn't do it that way. That's not how she told us to do it. And you have no idea how many times I'd be like, well, your teacher's doing it wrong. Because this is old school way. Let me show you what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, it was so hard for me. So I couldn't even help her, even though I really wanted to. So that's challenging. And so, yeah, letting parents be able to share their experiences without taking it personal, because it can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're teetering on not feeling successful. Okay. So just practice the experience of allowing people to have their own experience. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not reflective, right? That doesn't mean that we're not like, that didn't work real well. Or, it's a constant state of going, okay, what worked, what didn't, and why? Like, what are the kids telling me? Like, we always have to be in that state of being, but we also need to give people permission to have their own experience. And that's the thing that sometimes we don't do very well. What we do is we go right into the experience of taking it personal, right? So someone's upset or angry or whatever about a situation. So I'm the one who is now responsible for that. And, granted, there might be parts of that go, okay, what part of that conversation can I take with me and really reflect on and grow professionally or personally? And then what part of that is their experience, and they get to own that. If we did that in our personal lives, we would have a very different experience within our relationships. Okay. It's a really big thing. All right. So happy for it. Thank you, Don. I'm hoping to see you guys, or at least connect with you all soon. I'm hoping that will happen. Just coming home and listening to you makes my day so much better. Thank you, Rachel. I've been feeling our Zooms freeze all the time, so we have to tell kids to wiggle, wiggle. Yay! That's awesome. That is such a good strategy, Rachel. Such a good strategy. It's interesting because I was super busy during the summer getting all this PD out to teachers and to schools and all of that thing, all of those things. And then school started. And of course, teachers are back in classrooms. And so I've done a couple PDs since then, but, my schedule slowed down. And then when my schedule slowed down, and I'm hearing some stories from schools and the expectations we have of children of sitting for way too long, trying to reproduce, I think, what's developmentally inappropriate in a online platform in an inappropriate way has been really disheartening for me. And so I kind of became very unsettled the last week about just how we're approaching this. For me, I just for so long saw it as here's an opportunity that we have that we can really redefine what's important for children. And I feel very overwhelmed by the stories around it. For me, it feels like just trying to fill a hole in a bucket. Like, what do we do in the interim just to make those, hours of those instructional hours that we have to meet, or that the requirements that we have? It's like, I feel like we're missing the boat and we're not having those necessary conversations around what do children really need. And then how do we trust teachers enough? Because I'm looking from an administrative and whoever the powers that be, how do we trust teachers enough to be able to identify the needs of kids and really start to create authentic opportunities for learning? For me, it's so obvious, like, why aren't we doing this? And so when I started to get feedback from schools and from parents who are really feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, then I started to get a little, feeling that just disheartened. And so I'm hoping that, and that's why I jumped on today. I feel like I needed to connect with folks. I'm going to be sending a newsletter out soon with all of the stuff that, some videos and stuff like that. But I'm really looking at, like, what does PD look like from here on out? Like, not here on out forever, but like, what is the best level of support that I can offer? And so I'm still sort of thinking that through. And yeah, so I'm kind of up in the air about that, just because also some of you are working like the entire day, doing online programming and schooling, which doesn't make the least bit of sense to me. So anyhow, I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it going to look like? Is it weekends? Is it evenings? When can we create that support? I'm also working on trying to figure out around Padlet, looking at Padlet, and then I know I started a Flipgrid, but I'm trying to figure out, like, what would be most helpful. I also would like to know what schools are already returning, because I know a couple districts that I sort of have a relationship with. They have already returned or are in the process of returning to classroom sessions. And so, are we looking at what is it what do we need to do in terms of, supporting children's transition back to school. So anyhow, thank you all. I will look for that email, Dawn. Thank you all for spending these few moments with me. And please feel free to connect. And to let me know how you're doing, and to ask for whatever you need. And so I know, Rachel, you requested some additional support, so I'm looking at what does that look like, and maybe I need some more guidance in terms of what you're experiencing. So maybe think a little bit about what some of the challenges are, because I'm sure other teachers are having similar challenges, and maybe like we did in our last session that I did about virtual teaching, that maybe collectively we can come up with some ideas to support teachers and support children in our classrooms. So I wish you all love, and I wish you all well, and stay in touch.